जिस दिन भारत के राष्ट्रपति द्वारा इस घोषणा पर हस्ताक्षर किए जाएंगे उस दिन से अनुच्छेद 370 के सभी खंड लागू नहीं होंगे सिवाय खंड 1 के नामक।
Article 370 of the Indian Constitution granted Jammu and Kashmir special status, which allowed the state the power to have its own constitution, a state flag, and control over internal administration.
India's government has made a significant move to take direct control of the state of Kashmir. It will try to revoke a part of the constitution which gives India's only Muslim majority state the right to run its own affairs.
On August 5, 2019, the Indian government stripped J&K of its semi-autonomous status by abrogating Article 370. This move was followed by an internet and communications shutdown, a heavy troop deployment, and a security lockdown to prevent unrest and violence in the aftermath of the abrogation. This lockdown and internet shutdown that lasted for about a year and a half affected every aspect of life, including the erstwhile state's economy, education, and communication. One of the many casualties of this period has been press freedom. Since 2019, journalists in Kashmir have been unable to exercise their journalism and face increased control from the central government, including arrests under the anti-terror law called the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and the Public Safety Act. Over the past few years, the region has witnessed several cases of journalist detentions. The Kashmir Press Club has also been closed, and the government has implemented a stringent media policy that significantly restricts press freedom and critical expression. Fahad Shah, founder of the independent newspaper Kashmir Walla, was arrested under several sections of the Indian Penal Code, UAPA, and Public Safety Act for propagating terror. We've come to Srinagar to meet him and understand what it takes to be a journalist in Jammu and Kashmir, and his journey as the former editor of a now closed newspaper.
Hi Fahad, hello.
Hi Surabhi,
How are you? I'm
fine.
good. यहाँ बैठ जाऊँ? यहाँ पे आप आते रहते हो?
हाँ हम मतलब some of us friends and my colleagues sometimes basically few close friends we come here now and then.
And which place is this?
This is the interior of the Dal Lake, like वो जो वहाँ से पहाड़ी दिख रही है that is Boulevard Road.
अच्छा.
And this whole thing is the Dal Lake and this is the back side of the Dal Lake, so basically the backwaters of Dal Lake.
And when do you usually come here ऐसे relax करने के लिए?
In the last few months we have been going out sham ko in the evenings we go for a walk. This place is mostly very calm and there are like a lot of trees and green and a lot of birds chirping and it feels a little bit of nice and close to nature.
Yeah. And what is this sound that we can hear?
The sound that you were hearing was that the Muharram is starting, the month of Muharram, Islamic month of Muharram, and there is like the mourning in that month, which is 10 days. So it is that happening right now.
And you were born here in Srinagar?
I was born in Sovra.
Okay.
It's on the outskirts of Srinagar. This place is in the center, like it is the downtown area.
And you spent your entire childhood there?
I spent my entire childhood there, yes. Mostly there, yes.
And schooling?
Schooling just, it was like 2 kilometers away from my home in the same locality.
अच्छा.
And I studied in one school for 13 years.
हाँ, आप स्कूल में कैसे थे पढ़ने में?
पढ़ने में, I was good. I was nice, I was topper.
अच्छा.
Yeah, most of the years. So I was really good in school. I wanted to be an engineer.
You wanted to crack IIT.
Yes, yes. It was my dream to crack IIT.
So, where in Srinagar do you live now?
I live in Zukura area, which is around 10-20 minutes from here in the car, and that's where I live because we shifted in the past years while I was away.
Okay. And will you take us to your home?
Yes, we can go. We have to walk a little bit and then we can take the car and go there.
Okay. Yeah, because it is conversation over tea, so we hope कि चाय पिलाना आप हमें अपने घर पे.
हाँ पिलाएंगे.
Okay, let's
चलो, let's
go.
go.
इस बार तो बहुत गर्मी है कश्मीर में भी. While growing up as a child, how and when did you realize that Kashmir was a conflict zone and that you were living in a conflict zone?
I think it was in a very early age. I guess around the time like when you go to school, so like 10 साल की उम्र में 10-12 साल की उम्र में you started realizing कि जब आपको फहम आ जाता है, सोचने लगते हो, तो you see things around. तो उन दिनों तो बहुत डिफरेंट हालात थे. उन दिनों हड़तालें होती थी, स्कूल बंद होते थे, गन फाइट्स होती रहती थी, यहाँ वहाँ पे अटैक्स होते थे, ब्लास्ट होते थे. तो उससे तो पता ही चलता था कि समथिंग इज़ रॉन्ग, व्हाई इज़ ऑल दिस हैपनिंग. तो देन यू स्टार्ट आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस अराउंड. अपने जो बड़े हो या उनसे पूछो, या इधर उधर फिर थोड़ा सा न्यूज़पेपर देखने लगते हो. तो देन यू स्टार्ट रियलाइजिंग दैट व्हाट इज़ गोइंग ऑन, देयर इज़ अ पॉलिटिकल इंस्टेबिलिटी.
And any personal experiences you had जिसमें something happened with you?
Experience was a very young, when I was very young. So I think it was in 96 elections हो रहे थे शायद. Yes, I think 96 election. So we were playing at home with me and my cousins, and then those days it was I think the first election after the 90s का वो सारा phase, violent phase, and then that time it was heavily armed election. Army and police and everything was everywhere. And घरों में जाके देखते थे कि and who are the people, are people there, like voting हो रही है, the people should vote. But those were that was the time. And then also as a child, like the crackdown होता था उन दिनों में, तो उसमें जो है men would be asked to come out and gather in a common place of the area, and the women and children would be at home, and then there would be frisking of the whole house, search of the house. तो वो सब से फिर वो सब देखने लगे, उस सब से ध्यान आने लगा कि something is up, something is unstable and not normal. Those were the few memories. और बाकी सब चीज़ें तो होती रहती थी, like protests होते थे, वो देखते थे. एरिया में कुछ होता था, या कभी कोई someone would be get killed, तो वो सब देखते थे. The funeral processions or anything. Those were the early memories of childhood.
What shaped your idea of Kashmir?
Well, idea of Kashmir is a very big thing. I think it is a very big academically on SCP. It's a bigger issue, and I think you can't be shaped without studying, without reading, without experiencing, and without observing a lot of things. So I think that idea, that what actually is going on, what is important, things like culture, identity, stuff like that, literature, those things came into understanding in a much later process. I think around the time of college वगैरह के time पे, when I started reading stuff, when I got interested into journalism and किताबें पढ़ने लगे, बाकी सब चीज़ें, लोगों से बातें करने लगे along those lines. Conscience एक आ चुका था कि ऐसी चीज़ें हैं, there is things are problematic, and then you start exploring. And वो क्या है? But this is also part of downtown city center.
ये आप सबके घर इतने ही सुंदर होते हैं?
सबके ही होते हैं। आई थिंक नॉर्मली कश्मीर में ऐसे ही रहते हैं।
तो आप लोग ध्यान लगाते हो कि
आई
How-
थिंक कश्मीरी पूरा ध्यान घर में ही लगाते हैं। Real life, मतलब they earn a lot of money and then they spend it on the house or the marriage. These are two major things in any family's life. पियोगे चाय?
यस, चाय पीने ही आए हैं हम आपके पास जी। So many things. कि यहाँ पे वो नमकीन चाय भी पीते हैं ना, पिंक टी, नून चाय। तो इज दिस अ डेली थिंग या फिर नून चाय?
नहीं, नमकीन चाय ही पीते हैं सब।
मैं तो अपने होटल में रोज नून चाय पीती हूँ।
अच्छा,
रियली?
वहाँ मिलती है?
हाँ, मैं उनको बोला कि यही दो मुझे, तो ले आते हैं वहाँ।
ओह, दैट इज नाइस। यहाँ पे भी लोग वही नून चाय ही पीते हैं सुबह और आफ्टरनून में। इट्स लाइक द स्टेपल थिंग। बट फिर जो आजकल कुछ बच्चे छोटे हैं वो नहीं पीते हैं कभी, उनको अच्छा नहीं लगता है। और जब यूजुअली गेस्ट्स आते हैं तो ये वाली चाय बनाते हैं। इट्स अ डिफरेंट कल्चर। लाइक पहले लिप्टन एक चाय लाते हैं, फिर कुछ खाने के लिए लाते हैं, फिर नमकीन चाय लाते हैं। तो द गेस्ट्स हैव टू गो थ्रू लाइक different meals, kind of stuff like that. तो वो होता है levels of eating, yeah.
सो यू वर टेलिंग मी दैट आपको इंजीनियर बनने का शौक था ना? देन व्हाट हैपेंड, हाउ डिड जर्नलिज्म हैपन?
जर्नलिज्म हैपेंड ऐसे ही, मतलब इंजीनियरिंग के लिए प्रिपरेशन कर रहे थे। उन दिनों हालात भी ख़राब थे, 2008 चल रहा था, तो देयर वाज एन पीपल्स अपराइजिंग। यहाँ पे अमरनाथ लैंड रो हो रहा था, उसमें बहुत से प्रोटेस्ट हुए, सिविलियन किलिंग्स हुई। एंड एट द सेम टाइम I was in Delhi preparing for engineering, and I started, like while reading news, what was going on, I stumbled upon other stuff. ऐसे कुछ articles इधर उधर का, कुछ ये चीज़ें वो चीज़ें, मैं थोड़ा पढ़ने लगा, वो थोड़ी activism related चीज़ें। And one of the first things I think उन दिनों मैंने पढ़ा थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा, वो था ये नर्मदा डैम पे जो अपराइज चल रहा था, पीपल्स मूवमेंट, नर्मदा बचाओ आंदोलन। उसमें अरुंधति रॉय, मेधा पाटकर एंड पीपल लाइक दीज, दे वर वेरी वोकल। होता है ना, वो एक इंटरेस्ट बढ़ जाता है। इफ़ यू रीड समथिंग देन यू वांट टू रीड मोर, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट होल थिंग आई स्टार्टेड फीलिंग लाइक इफ आई बिकम एन इंजीनियर, व्हाट एम आई गोइंग टू डू? I'm going to end up in a corporate somewhere and I might not be able to do what I want to do. So I should think of something. Then I thought that I will become a writer. But writer बनने के लिए यहाँ पे आपको बहुत से चीज़ें चाहिए, मतलब you don't have a writing school, grammar school. I thought the way to that would be journalism. I'll become a journalist, study journalism, and then I'll go into writing. So then I joined a journalism college in 2009. And I stopped preparing for engineering and I didn't sit for the exams that year. I went for journalism.
So what in journalism did you find of highest value? Yeah, what was that one thing that was attracting you the most?
The ability to tell people's story. Basically, the reason, like in 2008 I shifted, was that I felt that the story was being misrepresented, or it was misquoted, or like told in a different way, broken down and shaped in a different way. It's historically, like if you have seen in the Middle East also, like how the Western media reported about Middle East in those times, how they were presented to the world. There were things manufactured. Like Chomsky has written a very good book, Manufacturing Concert. So there's always some kind of a narrative or an agenda behind a particular coverage. And also when the place is politically charged, there are agendas that come into play.
Yeah. So when you say कि वो थोड़ा सा misrepresentation you felt, so is it in context of stories that were being told about Kashmir, outside of Kashmir, yeah, generally also while within Kashmir?
It is generally also, like if you look at the first English mainstream book on Kashmir by a Kashmiri came in 2007.
The first.
matlab, which was in globally popular, like other than the poetry that was done by Aga Shahid Ali. The book was like Curfewed Night by Basharat Peer, went popularly. So the journalists also, the writers, this, like people who started taking these creative fields increased in the past 15, 20 years, 30 years. It wasn't the case always. So mostly, yes, everyone who would write about this place or write or research anything, they would all be from abroad or outside or different places. There would be very less people who were natives. So when the natives start telling their own story, there is a different story within. Also, there were stories that needed to be like told in a better way, or there were some stories that were never getting reported, so they needed to be changed.
What I have observed is that there are a lot of journalists from Kashmir, not just writers, also photographers and videographers. So, do you think it also has to do with the region and the layers and nuances of living here that so many people want to become journalists?
There are, I think, 4 to 5 colleges here where journalism is taught. I think every year, I guess around 300 people pass out as journalists. These 300 people has to go somewhere, no? And you have a place rich in culture, a lot of other things, in the geographic wise, in the nature wise, politically also it is charged. There are incidents keep happening, the violence. So there are so many things happening here. So obviously in that phase, a lot of people who are interested in becoming journalists. Someone wants to go into photography because there are so many things going on to click.
So, how did Kashmir Walla happen? How did it start?
So it was a blog in 2009, and I was a student that time. So I used to publish जो newspaper पे story which used to publish in the paper. I used to post them. Then by 2011, I was reading a lot of these digital magazines from US and other places. Some of them really inspired, like Guernica magazine was the one. So I was like, we should start something like this. So in 2011 May, I started it along with some other friends who were also students. It was me and a friend of mine who was doing videos, Vikar, and there was a very young, bright young journalist student, Yashraj Sharma, and he joined us that time as an intern, and then it continued from there. 7th of every month, we used to publish an issue, a bunch of stories, features, opinion, and stuff like that. So that is how it started. Like it was all voluntary basis, nothing. There was no office, no paid or anything. And on sides, I was doing my freelance journalism. And finally, the office and everything properly establishing it happened in 2018.
So, which was perhaps the first story जिसके लिए आपको reprimand हुआ या you were raised objections against you there?
Well, it's not just the story. Generally, like when an organization starts to grow and the reach grows and it becomes bigger, then you reach at a point where you have to engage with certain power centers, and they come and there are stakes involved, and like there are issues like don't do this and don't do that. It happens overall. It is not just towards a particular story.
Okay. So, what do you think was something that set apart Kashmir Wala so it garnered so much attention?
I think it was a lot to do that the team that we had was really good and very passionate people, young people, very hardworking, who would go to stories anywhere, reach anywhere, wherever they were told. And it was a lot like, kind of a workshop kind of culture. Like there were a lot of people would come who were very new or naive, and they would learn over the period of few months, and then they would become really good at their jobs. And it was like a kind of a, like I used to call it laboratory. What also kept it apart is that we used to cover everything. Like we used to be everywhere. Wherever there would something would happen, we used to send our person there. Our reporters would reach there. There is eventually a point where we used to set a benchmark, because lot of stories that we did eventually were covered by international media or were covered by national media. There were a lot of pressures, no matter. I think personally, I tried a lot to create a buffer between that pressure and my staff, because it would come to me and I would just keep it there, the pressure, and I didn't let it reach to the staff.
What did Kashmir Walla mean to you?
Well, I have always said that like it has been like a son to me. I started it when I was just in my early 20s, and it went on till my early 30s, and that's the youth you have. And I spent all my time making it a institution and making it an organization that would be known for something, for good work.
When did things go wrong?
As I said, like, it was growing, it was becoming bigger over the after 2018, 2019 happened, and everything was shut down, Article 370 and everything. We eventually decided to shut it down because financially we had nothing and it was all shut down for months. But then there were suggestions that not to do it and continue with working with within the colleagues only. And then we went on. In 2020 it went well, we covered COVID and everything, a lot of stuff. Then 2021 we kept doing our work, and whatever issues there were, we were covering them. But by the 2021 there were we had already come into kind of, the government was into a confrontational mode, and we had a few FIRs against our stories. But we thought it happens in every institution faces such kind of things. And then, but then end of 2021 the pressure had already went too far. And then there was a story we did in Feb 2022. It was about a gunfight, and then that one got an FIR, and in that case I was arrested. And then I was arrested in all other previous cases also that the paper had faced. And then from one bail to another case to another arrest, it went on like. And then I was booked under Public Safety Act and sent to prison in North Kashmir. And then before that would have ended, I was booked in another case which was related to an article that someone had written some 11 years ago, and it was said that this was published on our site back then.
When you come to know that there have been so many FIRs against you and that you're now going to be arrested, you're going to be in prison, how do you react, and what are your feelings, if you could describe?
Like, I came to know about it, I think a few months before that there was this feeling of, like arresting me. And then eventually the time came closer. I think a day before I was actually arrested, I was told by someone that this is what is going to happen. And I was like, okay, if this is happening, so like you can't change anything, like you can't do much about it. Then obviously, of course, you are worried about for your family. In my case, I was worried about my parents, definitely my mother and my father, because they were really affected by this. But obviously you try to have a stronger face and you try to be calm. I remember when I was arrested, I was finally told to sign the arrest memo. I told them that I need to call my mother, and I called my mother and I told her that I am not coming back tonight, I will have to stay. And that stay went too long. And she used to tell, like, then to other people, like he said that I will stay tonight, and he just stayed there. So it is very hard, but obviously when you are in a profession, you are in this profession, you have been arrested because of your profession, then you also need to be calm and you also need to deal with it.
Why do governments, any government, fears journalists so much?
I think it's happening across the world. If you look at Egypt, it's happening there. Look at Hong Kong, the whole independent media has been finished. Like Jimmy Lay is still in jail. His paper is shut, which was one of the very strong papers in Hong Kong. And if you look at Pakistan, journalists get killed, abducted, and whatnot. If you look at other places also, it is happening everywhere in the world and in the country also. It is very obvious, like why any government or any institution or any powerful entity fear journalists, because if the journalists are trying to report the wrongs uh, of that particular system or the administration or anything or the governments across the world, then the journalists are targeted because nobody would want the wrongs to come out. So there are means and ways to silence them. And I think it's a very common thing now. If you look at CPJ and you'll see all these updates, they come from all across the world, from smaller cities, bigger countries, smaller countries. There are journalists facing such kind of situation.
So while you were in jail, Kashmir Walla was still running.
It was running, yes. My people, staff, and like of course earlier we had a bigger staff, and but then eventually people left, and some people had to leave, and they had to move on, obviously in their life. But there were 5 6 people who stayed there till the end. They continued till they could, and that period was also not very easy. You have an editor who is in prison, and you have to look after the cases, you have to fight the legal battle, and then you have to, like, do and run the website also, which is being targeted, for which there are cases. And it is a difficult decision to stay in an organization which is facing legal action. But then 5 6 people stayed till the last day, till the office was shut.
So which for you was more heartbreaking, your own arrest or the shutdown of Kashmir Walla?
It was heartbreaking for me when it was shut, obviously, because it was a years of hard work and time invested in it. Arrest obviously was heartbreaking, but with that, then you eventually, like, accept it at one point. But then when you are coming out, and the paper got shut a few months before I came out, so it felt bad. Obviously, that time I was in prison when I heard it. So it did affect, yes, it affects me still today also, like, like that it doesn't exist anymore. So much work was done on it, because obviously I know the days when I started it and how it started. So it feels bad, to recall that time, what I did and what I had hoped that it will become, and now it is not there anymore. You can't even open it in the country on the browser.
How many days did you have to spend in jail, and could you share your experience?
I spent 21 months and some days in the different locations. Obviously, around 1.5 months initially, I spent in police custody in different police stations. Then I spent in North Kashmir prison for 2 months. Then from there, I was taken to Jammu, and there I was in a joint interrogation center for 3 weeks in a cell in isolation, and then I was in prison for 1.5 years more in Jammu. Like, we read a lot about prisons in books and films and everything, but it's not nothing like that. You can't explain how it feels to be in prison until and unless you go to prison. You can feel it when you go inside and when you are spending that time. It's a very it's a very different and strange experience, because like I have read a lot about prison. I have done stories about prisoners, reported about them, asked them questions, how you feel, but I don't think I had ever gotten an answer from them which was exactly what I felt. And even I can't answer how it feels, because it's very different. You're out of, away from your family, away from the society, you're in a very secluded space. It's a different world altogether inside. But in a lot of ways it breaks you down in multiple ways, then it recreates you in a different shape. You walk in as a person and you come out as a different person.
You were sharing the other day that your health was particularly affected while living there.
Well, health in prisons, I think, is obviously gets worse with everyone, because the medical facilities are not really that great in the prisons. It's just one doctor who is there for 1100 prisoners. So how much can that doctor cater to? And there are two people who are there to give medicine, and only 100 people can be, or 50 people can be checked every day. And if you have something serious, you need to be taken to outside hospital, and that takes a lot of time. So I was sick in prison few times. I was taken once out of prison to outside hospital, and it took 3 months to reach to that point where I was finally taken to the hospital. I had a lot of stomach issues and a lot of these skin allergies because of the weather. And I think after I came back, I still continue with those issues. Like my stomach issue still continues. I can't digest a lot of things. I can't eat a lot of things now. And mentally also, you are into bits and pieces, because you get anxious, panic attacks, anxiety, and a lot of other stuff. You love to stay alone, spend time alone. Like right now, also, I love to spend some time alone in my room, and I just sit there. I don't want to talk to anyone. And some of the things that stay with you, I don't know if they change eventually, but they stay. There's a lot of issues with memory also. You tend to forget a lot of things. Like I think since I have come back, my friends tell me, oh, you have forgotten this, or you have forgotten this person. I ask them, who is this person? I forget names. And I think since I have started writing again and doing journalism again, I realized that I have forgotten some words also, which is very strange. Like the other day I was writing something, I couldn't figure out what certain thing was called, and I was like, I used to know this, what happened? And then I had to look it up in some way or the other. So those things happen, but you have to live with it. No, you can't change it.
And in terms of the legalities involved, how was that process?
In legal terms, is like there's a lot of lack of legal education to people. And I think in the prison, I saw a lot of people who didn't even know that you can apply for bail, who didn't even know that if you get your bail is rejected in the trial court, you can go to high court or there is supreme court. People didn't know. People are spending like 4 or 5 years in prison without knowing that they could have gone to high court if the bail was rejected in the trial court. And that is, like very sad. Like, and in my case, I also learned the fact that, if the case is really well, and if it is done properly, and like if it is heard properly, then legally, yes, you can get justice. Judiciary is has so much power to do right of the wrongs. And also, I think because I was journalist and I was in prison and I saw the condition, I feel that there's a lot of lack of reporting about prisons, about the prison conditions and the prisoners.
Do you feel you've lost something in these 21 months, which otherwise you could have spent doing other things? So,
Lot of things. I think obviously first the time, the like almost 2 years is a long time. I've lost that. I've lost relations. I have lost friends, people, and obviously I've lost the organization. So when I walked in, there was a kind of a space I was in. And when I was coming out, I was feeling I will have the same space, because I had walked in and I thought I'll come out and it'll be same. But when I walked out, everything had changed in that small space. I'm not talking about the larger political context or Kashmir or the country or the world. I'm saying that smaller space that I had. Everything had changed, because obviously people grow, and we don't grow in jail. We grow in a different way. We are not in part of that world at that point of time, but the other people are, and they change, and things change, things grow, everything grows, life moves on. Also, in these 2 years, the work that I would have done, the things that I would have done, I'm not going to get that time back. So obviously last 2 years of life, and which is I think little compared to larger. There are people who have been in prison for 5 years, 10 years, 6 years, and their trials haven't even started, or some people's trial has started and they haven't even got the bail yet.
How do you describe press freedom in Jammu and Kashmir?
In terms of the like the personal press freedom, and I think it would be really great to see if our paper comes back to life one day. That would be really a great step towards strengthening press freedom in the region, because I think independent media is really plays a big role in terms of the society, or the having a really good administration, and I think that is important in those ways. And I think in the rest of the country there are a lot of organizations who are doing good work despite a lot of pressure and lot of issues that they are facing, but they are still trying to do some kind of work. I think we should also think big, like in the larger way how the larger media scene works, because now world has become very small in terms of this media scene because of the digital media. Like if you write a story here, it will be published across the world within minutes because of the internet. I think the issues are always going to be there are always going to be pressures and pulls, and you have to manage and work around them and still do your job if you want to do your job. If you don't want to do it, then there's no complaint.
And what do you plan to do next? How do you see what do you want to do?
I am doing journalism. I am writing and I am working, and hopefully that's what I'll do.